One.
Welcome to Unfiltered Nation with Jacqueline Archiga, presidential hopeful. I'm here with Seth and Harvey, and you can tune in on nighthawk-radio.com.
How are you guys doing tonight?
Good, good. Thanks for having me.
I'm fine.
Hey, appreciate you doing this every week. Appreciate Harvey coming on as well. And
Thank you, thank you. Me as well.
you're 2028 presidential candidate now.
Not officially candidate yet. I'm still in the hopeful phase. I gotta, get the registration with the FEC and all that stuff, but we are getting there. This is
All
foot
that
in the
fun
door.
stuff.
Yeah, the bureaucratic paperwork stuff.
A lot of red tape.
Tell me about it, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, filing for office sucks.
It's definitely a bit of a process, and I think a lot of people don't even realize how much of a process it is up until you start Googling it.
Exactly. Yeah. Just for the small office I filed for, it was aggravating. I couldn't imagine president.
When I looked it up the very first time, I was like, "Ooh, this is a doozy."
Yeah. uh, all right. What is your thoughts on the presidential fitness test? Trump
All
bringing
right,
it
so
back.
presidential fitness test, I remember when I was a kid, we had the presidential fitness test. So I actually got kind of used to using that square little box and trying to reach my arms all the way to whatever number it was they told us. Um, I think it needs to be more well-rounded. You know what I mean? I don't know that it's always necessarily been about fitness, and I think one of the things that we're having a problem with is it's not accounting for neurodivergence. It's not accounting for disabilities or chronic conditions. If the presidential physical fitness test is going to be a thing, my personal opinion, honestly, is that it needs to be more inclusive to everybody and it needs to really focus on a lot of different health conditions that we currently have going on, physical conditions that are happening. Not all of our kids are physically at the same level or mentally at the same level or anything like that. There needs to be a lot of nutritional stuff taken into account here as well. I mean, I don't think it's been very all-encompassing. I remember being nervous as a kid when I was taking the presidential fitness test. I don't know about you guys, but I was nervous.
Well,
Harvey,
when we was going to school, we had our as long as I can remember when we was going to school from first grade, we had somebody that taught us physical education. I mean, we got out of class for like maybe 30 minutes or something about every day, and inside or outside, we was either in the gym or outside, and that we did physical education.
Yeah, I think that's a real important thing is, I remember going outside or being in the gym as a kid as well. I don't know that I definitely would say as an adult, I've learned more about physical education in terms of like with my own self and how my body is. I thought when I was a kid, it was a little bit kind of glazed over the top as far as being personal for kids. I think that might help bring a lot of kids, to the surface as far as what they need to be able to recognize in their own bodies as well. As far as like, nutritional stuff, the physical stuff, the mental stuff, it really could be a lot more all-encompassing. And I mean, getting out there and running around and doing stuff is great because we do need more people who are physically aware of what's happening with their body.
exactly. And tariffs, that's a big issue right now. What would you do with tariffs?
Tariffs have been a fun talk. I will tell you that much. I will also personally divulge some fun information. I was trying to buy something online not too long ago, and my shipping was all of a sudden like $25. I was like, "Whew, it used to be five." Honestly, I think we have a whole lot of stuff we got to relook at when it comes to tariffs. Tariffs are really attacking all of our pocketbooks, all of our bank accounts a lot heavier than I think people really had noticed originally. I think we have to talk more about how trade is happening and what kind of like skills, what kind of businesses, what kind of products we're bringing to the table as the US, but not only that, what's coming across our borders, you know? I think that there is a lot of re-talking to do about the possibility of us internationally implementing businesses or other nations implementing businesses here, having a lot broader communication. I think it would be behoove us, honestly, as much as I kind of hate that word, to kind of get a better understanding culturally where people are at, as well as our own people when we're talking about business economics, when we're talking about farming or agricultural stuff that's going across the borders, when we're talking about cultural aspects of communication, how workers are treated in, the working world. I think we have a big misunderstanding currently as far as how everybody kind of handles things. And we don't all handle it the same, right?
What's your thoughts on Trump defunding PBS? Would you fund PBS?
Ooh, PBS. So that one's fun. I remember PBS as a kid. To my knowledge, PBS does have a decent amount of funding from the community. You know what I mean? I can understand where we do need to allocate different amounts of money and where funding goes. And we are in a horrible debt. We've been in debt. There's no joke about it. We can't toss that any other way, you know? But I don't know that necessarily defunding PBS is the way to go. I think reallocating and relooking at where the money's going, and then taking into account the fact that they do have public sources of funding and they do have private sources of funding, doesn't necessarily mean wipe out the whole program altogether, right?
Yep.
And
And
honestly, in the past few years, PBS did not get, I don't know if you remember Seth or Harvey, help me out here, but have you seen a whole lot of PBS stuff recently?
no,
Yeah, me neither.
No.
when I was a
Yeah,
kid, yeah.
right. When I was a kid, I remember it completely. And now as an adult, I don't think it has nearly enough visibility. But I mean, I remember there being stuff that was beneficial for information and educational purposes that we're just not seeing it anymore, you know? That needs to be taken into account too, as far as where funding is going and what we're actually visibly seeing from PBS happening too, you know?
Well, it's, well, I can remember watching Sesame Street when it was when it was real good Sesame Street.
Yeah, educational and all that.
Yeah.
How would you handle Israel and Gaza situation?
Ooh, I want to point out to you that when you first told me I was getting this one, I was like, "Whoo, boy, that is a gnarly topic to start off with, you know?" I'm liking the variance here in the questioning, you know what I mean? I think right now, honestly, if I'm gonna be transparent about my opinions here, which I always will be, it is a lot of power and a lot of identity stuff that is happening. I know they don't agree, right? We've got the Israelis, we've got the Palestinians, and each one wants the same land, you know? I will tell you the truth, I see a lot of similarities between that situation and what's happening in Russia and the Ukraine. I think it's less about power, and we need to start focusing, and as well as, the international groups that we're talking about here, we need to start focusing on what's happening with the families, what's happening with the kids. There are a lot of civilians that are getting killed. There's lots of hostages being taken, and really responding with brutal military, I don't know is necessarily the answer at this point. As far as I see it, I think we have to come to an even ground. Everybody's kind of got to agree that we're going to get some of what we want, and then we're not going to get some of what we want. Then they're going to get some of what they want, and they're not going to get some of what they want. I think the best way to handle it at this point would probably to be to sit down and straighten out the different narratives that are going on and try to talk to each other like humans, find a middle ground or make some kind of peace with each other, you know? There's definitely a power imbalance when we're talking about military type stuff here. And you know, neither is Israel sitting at a even playing field, you know, is really kind of the way I look at it. It's people have a right to defend themselves, but at the same time, if we're, as the US, going to throw a bunch of money and a bunch of military power at it, we also can't really pick sides on a conversation that we don't maybe necessarily completely understand.
Harvey, you got any questions about that?
I'm like her. This has been going on for ages and ages because each one, like she, each one of them thinks they're the right for her to let land over there, and I don't know if I don't know where they ever be settled. I really don't.
I mean, I'll be honest, I have a hard time with thinking that, okay, we're finally going to meet some middle ground. But I think the reality of it is at a certain point, if I'm being honest, sometimes I wonder if even the Israelis or the Palestinians or us here in the US have any idea what is being fought over anymore. It's gotten so far like diverted from I think a lot of the original basis of it, and now it's turned into a power flex, which seems a little bit unnecessary and inhumane to me.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts on the homeless problem here in America?
Ooh, I will tell you what, every time I drive up to Denver, I wonder the same thing. There are a ton of homeless in Denver, and there's a decent amount here in the Springs too, actually, right outside of where I live in Colorado. Um, I think we're not addressing some of the other problems when it comes to homelessness, right? So we got a lot of people, we're having a hard time getting them education or healthcare or food. Or if we're also being honest, there's a lot of addicts out there on the streets, you know, and they're not getting services that they need, right? I think there's a lot of aspects where we could be helping these people lift themselves up and get more education, get, you know, potential jobs, have more experience in filling out a resume, or we could have a lot more people helping funds, or not necessarily fund, but helping like volunteer in soup kitchens. There could be more programs created, I feel like, for helping the homeless without just trying to reallocate a bunch of money to build a bunch of housing or anything like that. You know, we're flooding the system at this point.
Harvey, you got any questions on that topic?
Well, yeah, I think, well, like you said, you find out who they are and why they got how did that situation come about, you know? And there's a lot of veterans that's homeless too. I'd say a lot. And I'm like her. I mean, they need to really find out what's what goes on and why they're homeless and everything, and then maybe go from there and try to work out, you know, what could be done to help.
I completely agree. I mean, I am on the same page as you, and I'm a veteran myself, from the Army. And I will tell you what, I was unemployed for probably about a year and a half after I got out. And I remember before I got out, it was like, okay, you're about to get out. Now let's help you figure out your resume, get ready for, you know, the working world as a civilian. And I will tell you this much, it was not helpful at all. It really was not. I was not nearly prepared, and I joined pretty young. I went to college for about a year and a half, and then decided that wasn't for me at that particular moment, and decided to, you know, move back home, got a job, decided that wasn't for me for the moment, and then up and joined the army, you know, and left, and I turned 20 in basic training. So I had a pretty young experience as far as joining the military and then getting out. And there are a lot of homeless that are veterans. And they fought for our country, you know, whether or not we agree with what they're fighting or who they're fighting or any of that stuff, they have still fought for this country. Their families have fought for this country. My husband is still enlisted in the army, you know? And it's a constant struggle, even just getting through the daily life. My husband, I will tell you what, and hopefully he's not going to listen to this next one coming up, but he is scared to death to get out because he's retiring out at 20, 21 years, and he's like, I don't know how I'm going to implement my skills, you know. And while we're not necessarily skirting the line of poverty at this moment, it's still a valid concern, especially for the veterans who have a lot of different problems. I mean, we're talking PTSD, we're talking lots of trauma. Actually, my second husband, because I'm on a couple by now, he is a veteran now and retired, and he's got so many medical problems from being in the infantry. It's ridiculous. I mean, the VA has been pretty okay with him and they're helping him out. But if it wasn't for that, that poor man would be out on the streets, you know, because physically he can't keep up with where our job, society is living right now. And that is a big concern, you know? I mean, where did the people's issues come from? How did they become homeless? What struggles are they fighting at home? What or before they were on the streets, what kind of stuff is going on? We haven't taken enough account or taken that into account enough to just wipe out, a whole group of people and be like, oh, well, they just don't want to work or they're lazy or something, you know? I mean, there's a lot more to look into, I think.
Yes.
Would you use an auto pen?
Man, I knew that one was gonna come up. Let's just be real. Would you?
No.
You see, and that's I had to ask. I was like, all right, so come on, like I gotta know. Are you gonna use an auto pen? You know what? Honestly, I think policy signings, that hand, hand and pen. You know what I'm saying? I have a big old problem with why in the world is cursive not being taught anymore, right? So I will tell you with my teen, I love that kid to death. Goodness knows that he cannot write in cursive, and I have tried to teach him at least 5 or 6 times. My grandma, she only wrote in cursive, and I was like, man, when I was younger, I don't get that. I couldn't only write in cursive. Now, guess what? I only write in cursive. And I'm like, my thing is I'm old school about it, right? My grandparents raised me, like I mentioned last time on the show. They were born in the 40s. Um, and so I'm old school about it. If I'm going to sign away my life, fight for my country, possibly die for my country, sign legal paperwork, finance paperwork, you got to be able to sign your name. You got to be able to do it. That is like your mark on everything, you know? That's my personal opinion. I couldn't do an auto pen.
No, no matter how bad my handwriting is, I still want to sign my real name and everything. I mean, personally, an auto pen would probably be better for me, but no, if I'm like you, if I sign something, it's going to be my handwriting and nobody else.
Right, exactly. I think it really, I mean, if you look back, look at the Declaration of Independence, you know?
Yeah,
We're signing stuff. It has a meaning. It means something to me. It's something that I'm giving up or I'm sacrificing or I'm understanding. That should be my handwriting coming from there. That's what that should be.
All right, Harvey, you got some questions?
well, well, I don't know if she probably rectified the situation, but Israel and the Palestinians, I was going to ask her what we should do about Russia and Ukraine.
I mean, you know, so I had this conversation with my husband, I think a
Yeah,
couple weeks back ago, because we were talking about foreign policy. And he's like, all right, what are you going to do about Russia and Ukraine? And I was like, all right, let's hold on for a second. I'm not there yet, but you know, um, I think it's kind of the same issue that I brought up with Israel and
yeah,
Gaza that we've been talking about. We got to hit a middle ground, you know. And at this point, if I'm going to be honest, and my husband said it's kidnapping, I don't think it is technically, but I would sit down in a room and grab a couple translators and be like, look, no one's leaving until we figure this out. No one's leaving until we figure it out, and we gotta find a middle ground. Someone's gonna get part of what they want and part of what they don't want. And I think a lot of the other issue that we've had is, if you look back at it, it was the Bush administration when Putin had wanted to kind of, work hand in hand with the U.S. And that kind of got ixnayed right then and there. And I think that is a lot of where some of the issues have come. I think when it comes down to it, there's been a lot of people who, and we'll see how much this stirs the pot a little bit, but there has been a lot of people who have looked at Russia like they're the enemy. I don't necessarily know that that is 100% true. I do know one thing, though. I know that when you stick somebody in a bad guy position long enough and after, enough time, they're going to become the bad guy is kind of where it goes. I think we really have to take into account the amount of power that it says for, like, speaks for us and other people to sit down and talk to somebody like a human being. Try to understand, meet them where they're at in, a certain level of talking, communication wise, where we can then make informed decisions. Okay, what are we supporting? What are we helping? What are we hurting in the situation? Are these people getting looked at as people? Do they feel like their concerns have been understood? And I think at this point, everyone's kind of had a bit of blinders on as far as let's just pull a power move and bad guy, good guy. And I think it's about time we reevaluate a lot of that.
You got any more questions, Harv?
All right. What I see some on there. I get on there. I see some on, I watch the news a lot and everything. And how are you about the police? Would you try to make them a lot more stronger, like, well, same as the military, or would you wouldn't be about defunding the police, would you?
No, I'm not at all about defunding the police, but I will tell you this much, the police have got to be policed. They have to be. There needs to be accountability for how they are functioning. There needs to be humanity taken into account as well. We're not just sending in the army, every time we have a civil dispute going on in a household, which I think is where we've kind of reached a lot of problems is that the police sometimes have made movements a lot more like the military, which is not necessarily always uncalled for, but I wouldn't say that that would be my first route of action. You know what I mean? There also needs to be a lot more communication between one state to another state because if we have a police officer who's not being policed or has something that they've done that's wrong, it needs to be shared across the states so that we can see what's happening, track patterns. I mean, I wouldn't want somebody who's racist or sexist or anything along the lines just hopping over a couple states away and then, okay, well, now you're fine. But defunding the police is also not the answer, really. We still need people protecting us. I know there are a lot of families with kids, a lot of people I mean, it comes down to the homeless situation too. A lot of people who don't have homes, don't have jobs, a lot of people who are addicts that, they're kind of getting caught in crossfire here. And I think it really needs to be re-looked at how police do police people. And I think it really comes down to treating people like people again in every sense, not only the people the police are dealing with, but also the police themselves. It isn't so easy as just getting rid of them because now who's going to take care of some of these issues that we have? It's going to be a rampage of whatever free for all. All of a sudden now it's crazy status.
Do you have any thing about, well, since we were talking about the police, and I mean, I've seen several times where police pick up somebody, even around here. I see police pick up somebody and get them in front of and take them to jail and everything. And first thing you know, they beat them home. I mean, do you think we need something to set up so maybe what I'm going to try to say, the judicial system, they need to be looked at. Do you believe they need to be looked at too? They need to really be tested too to see how they go about doing their job right.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, as far as I am concerned, my answer to any of those questions will be police everybody. Everyone needs to hold accountability. We need to hold accountability for people. We need to hold accountability federally, locally, anything that we're talking about. There has to be systems in place that are, you know, essentially just in a neutral middle ground to look at the information that we see coming in judicially, law enforcement wise out on the streets, federal Bureau of Investigations, all that stuff. These systems, these sections that we have, auditing. You know what I mean? Stuff has to be taken into account on a level that is making sure, like I said, the police get policed, the government gets policed. Everybody has to take accountability for their actions. And I think that really where we're failing right now is that we're not holding people accountable for the actions that they're doing all the time. And we're not revamping our system. There's a lot of systems that we have in our government currently, even in local governments, that haven't been looked at in ages. Our society has changed, our economy has changed. A lot of different things are changing, and we need to make sure that our government, our law enforcement, it's keeping up with the changes.
And I've seen it on me, you both, and seen it on news too many times that somebody's been arrested for it, and they're probably a bad criminal, and they let them go, and they go out and kill somebody else.
Right. I mean, and it's I think it's happened both ways though, too. I think we have people who have been arrested that haven't done anything wrong.
That's true.
And
Oh, there are people. I believe. I think there's a whole lot of people in state prisons and federal prisons probably are innocent. That probably are innocent. I believe they've been accused wrong. I really believe that. I'm like you. I really believe that. So there's a lot of people that's probably in prison right now. Maybe are innocent.
I mean, I think really when it comes down to it, if we're talking about the financial aspect as well, I mean, we taxpayers and anybody else who's paying any taxes, we're paying for the people to be there in prison and stuff like that.
Yes.
And that's not necessarily helping our cause any, right? We have, yeah, there are criminals who do need to be detained. That is without a question a truth in the world. But I think we also need to look a lot into the idea of, educating these people, having a safe outlet where they can get reintegrated back into the world and into the societies, into the economy, as long as we have proof that they are not still out there on murder rampages. I think there are people who definitely have a right to be relooked at as far as integrating back into society. And I think that our programs set up for that are not well enough developed, nor are they safe enough currently.
All right.
Harvey, you got any more questions?
I don't have all yet. What would you do
Well,
about what? I was going to ask, what would you? What are your views on trying to get? I have no problem with anybody coming into this country trying to make a living for themselves, but I always say we need some kind of system so they can come in here, maybe quicker. Maybe there's something to do something. If you were friends, would you try to maybe get some kind of system, maybe make Congress work with you on something where it would be a easier way for anybody wanting to come to this country and work and want to live here and want to do it the right way.
Oh yeah, the right way is
Yeah,
definitely, I mean, that's the way to do it. And there are a lot of families who are coming over here the legal route. I mentioned on last week's show, my husband actually is not originally from the US, and his family did go through the whole process. And I mean, I didn't understand it even remotely until I had finally asked somebody who went through it. And I'll tell you this much. I agree with you here, Harvey. It takes entirely too long. It does. It takes a long time. And I mean, I think the problem is here, aside from the criminals, right? We're not talking about those ones at this current
right,
point,
right, right.
but the legal people, the people who are coming over here legally, the longer it takes and the more complicated the process is, the more we're opening the door for people to say, screw that. We'll just get over here and we'll hurry up and do it. And I think that is a big failure on our part. I think we really do need to relook at the policies that we have for the borders. Yeah, if people have been known to create unsafe environments or criminal stuff, there needs to be internation communication where we're talking with whatever nation they came from and legal repercussions need to be taken, because we don't want a place where our people are unsafe. But also at the same time, we've got, hundreds of thousands of people that aren't from here that now their safety is up in question too. But with how long it's taking people to become citizens or be able to work here or anything like that, it's really just opening a door for, okay, well, let's take the back door in instead. And I think a lot of people who do want to come here and work here, raise a family, support our economy, or maybe have a better life, depending on, where they're coming from or what their goals are. It's not happening fast enough. And we've got families and kids split up and trying to struggle to figure out where to go and how to, work our legal system and our immigration laws the way that they should be worked. I think the system needs a revamp. We need to stop dragging our feet on some of these things, and we need to make sure that the people, I mean, I can't say it enough, people are getting looked at and treated like people.
What about inflation? That's another big issue right now. Well, it's been an issue since COVID.
It has been. It has been. So I was in Germany when COVID happened, and I will tell you what, that was a whole world of differences. I think a lot of that goes hand in hand with our tariff kinds of things. It really does. And if you look at where our economy is right now, we have a lot of places where we're struggling at. There's a lot of big businesses and I'm not out here to attack any big businesses, but I'm also here to say that, our smaller businesses, smaller mom and pop places, they are getting shut down or having to shut themselves down left and right because you can't keep up with the fees, you can't keep up with inflation, you can't keep up with anything. And we have people who could be providing good businesses and good services unfortunately falling right through the cracks because things cost so much money that you can't even afford to house yourself, your family, or run a business.
Very true. So, how would you handle inflation and bring it down?
I think the best way to go about it is to start at the top and work our way down, right? So there's a lot of problems with the tariff issues that are going on. There's a lot of who's going to raise what price, how high is it going to go? It's costing us a lot and it's costing other nations a lot. I think a lot of this stuff too is, where are we getting the money from for housing? Where are our taxes going? There's no transparency in a lot of these things. And right now, I don't know that I would say our government has given us a whole lot to go on or a leg to stand on as far as, okay, this is where this is going, and now we can allocate it properly. With tariffs and things of the sort and any inflation that comes from that, the reality is the way that that's going to get handled as far as I see it is internation communication. We really do have to as a US, expand our views to the world and look at how other people are handling things, what other kinds of products are coming in, how we can lower our taxes by lowering the cost of what we're spending, bringing into the US, and what we're making money on or spending going out of the US. I think a lot of the thing that it really starts off with is, as crazy as it sounds, is some of the international stuff because everything goes up once the shipping for goods or tariffs, all that kind of stuff, taxes on things is going through the roof and inflation follows right next to it all the time. I think it's a hand-in-hand process.
Harvey, you got any questions on that?
Well, no, you pretty much well, I like our answers. I'm trying to save some of my questions for the next time because I want to know more. That's what I'm doing. That's what I'm saying. I want to know more about a lot of your views, to keep doing this, and so I'm good for right now. I like to hear somebody's opinions and views because it's a fair way to do it. It's the American way to do it. So I want to hear what you have to say about a lot of this stuff. So, and I'm glad to talk to you.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate that. I really do. I think it's been a process, I will tell you this much, because I have learned more about the government and more about what's happening in the world since I decided I wanted to run for president than even when I was in the service. And I think there's a lot of aspects, you see stuff on the news and then you're like, okay, what do I trust on the news? And then you hear something from your neighbor and you're like, okay, what do I trust from my neighbor? And then you're like, what do I trust from the radio or what do I trust from the internet? And I think it's really challenging because when I spoke to my grandma and told her I wanted to run for president, she told me to listen to people and I freaked out because I was like, I don't know how to solve all the problems. And she's like, you don't need to know how to solve all the problems. But I think as a nation, we've had kind of this over, like, yeah, like a purple elephant in the room of every president needs to have the answers right away. You got to have everything. And I think we've really kind of looked over and glazed over the fact that presidential candidates, presidential hopefuls, the president and vice president, you know what I mean? We're all still learning stuff. And the best way to learn and figure out stuff is to talk to people and to listen to people. I think that is something we have been lacking for way too long. And that is something that I think is like a golden key to how we develop and evolve as a nation, internationally, as a military, as, a government, as a people in general, I think, really.
That's the way it should be because they have voters out there that vote, no matter who they vote for, and they get their legally voters and everything. They have their opinion and everything, and really the voters are what makes you. I mean, if they don't like you, they can get you out. If they like you, they'll put you in. And I think it's the way because America, this United States, it's the people. It's the people.
Right, it really is. It's people, and the people that we have should be able to understand and communicate with each other without having to feel like they can't understand or feel like there's some kind of gatekeeping or not have transparency in finances, in legal matters, in business matters, in, agricultural things, in everything, really. I think we're lacking a whole lot of transparency. And it's confusing the hell out of people right now. And if I'm gonna be honest, I will tell you, I'm no party. I'm a fan of no party. Can we make that official party title? You know what I mean? Not really though. I think I have grown up watching friends, family. Oh, I'm Republican. Oh, I'm a Democrat. Oh, I'm this. And really, I think that kind of overshadows what the people who are going to be representing us, what their beliefs really are, because sometimes people aren't paying attention to all that part. Sometimes there are people who are more so paying attention to, I'm a Democrat, I've always been a Democrat, I can only vote Democrat. I think that we need to take a lot of the focus off of the parties when it comes down to it, and we need to hear people as people. If you show up thinking someone's doing something wrong, you're gonna find a reason why they're doing it wrong, whether or not it's there or you have to create it because you have a bias. And I think that is something that we just need to toss that out the window and get past that as a society and, as a whole.
I'm
Would you
like
support?
you.
Oh,
Hey,
sorry.
well, I'm like what she says. I've been a voter ever since 1980, and I've never really voted for the party. I've always voted for one to who I think was going to make the best job, and I'm going to still be that way.
Yeah, I think that is really an important thing. I mean, I've got family who are Republicans, ones who are Democrats, and more so recently they have kind of, switched up a little bit and been like, "Oh, hold on a second. Well, I was this and now maybe I'm that." And I'm like, "Well, soup labels are for cans and we can move past that part." And, there's a lot of people I think who are now focusing on more what the issues are and what the candidates are saying and actually voting for what they believe in. Unfortunately, I still think there's a percentage of people, that it kind of gets overshadowed by Republican, Democrat, so forth and so on. That's something that I think that is well aged out of our society at this point.
Yeah, I agree.
Do you support marijuana being 100% legal in the United States?
You mean federally legal?
Yeah.
So So, fun fact. I was in California when it became medically legal, and then I was living in Washington State when it became recreationally legal. And now I'm here in Colorado. And I will tell you this much, I have seen so many different ways of doing it. So Washington, when I was there, it was all medical, and then as soon as it became recreationally legal, boom, they shut down all the medical shops and everything became recreational. When I came back here, me and my family to the US, came over here to Colorado, you have recreational and then you got medical. And it's like two separate entities kind of working together. My personal opinion, I don't see a problem with marijuana. I really don't. I think that we should probably be making sure that if anybody is struggling with some kind of addiction to whatever it is, whether or not it's talking about marijuana or some other something, you know, that gets looked at and handled in some kind of humane way that still gives people a voice to speak out about their issues or not to feel like their whole support net is falling out from underneath them. However, I do think that when we're talking about law enforcement, we're talking about the military, I'm not going to want somebody rolling up on me smoking a joint. That's just the reality of it. Um, as far as certain other things are concerned, when we're talking about medical type things, there is a lot of proof that that helps a lot of people. I mean, if you even look at, a lot of the things with mushrooms and psilocybin and things like that helping people currently, there's a lot of people that are getting helped by that too. I think we need to keep up with paying attention to how people are interacting while, on, say, marijuana or something else. And we need to take into account a lot of the medical research that's happening. And I really don't think that people should be afraid to talk about it anymore. It's not a taboo topic.
Well, I'm going to ask you in Washington when they done that and put it in recreation. They made a law for that. That a lot of these ones that was before they had the law, that a lot of these ones that would sell it on the street like that. I wonder how many lost it because they couldn't sell it no more.
A decent amount, I'll tell you that much. A decent amount. But but there were still a lot of people who were out there, selling it on streets and stuff. I'll tell you that much. I definitely saw that too. Where as far as like, what we're talking about, where are the funds going, right? Like if we are having it be legal and it is getting taxed, it needs to go back into something. It needs to go into our fixing our road infrastructures. It needs to go back into helping the educational systems we have. It needs to feed back into the economies that we're living in. But the reality of it is we sat back and I know I watched this happen firsthand and it was kind of ridiculous. Okay, so now it's legal to smoke weed, but you can't go buy it from anywhere. You can have it, but you can't sell it or you can't do this. And it was a lot of confusion. A lot of people were really unclear. And I think, unfortunately, the way that we went about it didn't help anybody get any more clear about it because it's weird bureaucratic tape going on in some of these senses. And well, of course, we don't want a bunch of drug lords or what have you just piling into other states and so forth and so on. At the same time, I think we should be looking at it as far as how's it helping people? How is, the tax money coming in? Where are we allocating that? Or do we have people in prison for smoking a joint? Because there's, I think, a lot more pressing matters than just that going on in the world.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's true. If somebody I think would probably, I don't know if they were selling it or, but if it was just somebody like she said, if that's all they done, I can't understand why they would be in jail.
Right. I mean, if we're not talking criminal type stuff, we don't need to treat people like that, like criminals, if they're not criminals, you know?
Long Yeah, as long as they never bother nobody. I mean, as long as they don't bother nobody, hey, it's them.
Right. I know there's a lot of issues when it comes down to talking about like driving. And
Yeah,
here in Colorado, I see it all the time. Drive high, get pulled over. And I think that we haven't for a long time. Also, it's been so not talked about and it's been so taboo because we have so many differences and so many blurred lines between okay, you can do that here in your state, and then now federally we're talking about a crime. You know what I mean? And I think that is not helping anybody figure anything out, whether or not it has to do with medical research, whether or not it has to do with, driving, anything along those lines. The blurred lines aren't helping us out because now it becomes a taboo topic. Well, we're sitting in a position where how many states is it legal in versus how many states is it not legal in? And at this point, we really need to be working together to have a better understanding of how do we take the criminalization out for the people who aren't being criminals? How do we see how it's affecting people medically, mentally? How do we see what's actually happening, just behind the picture of somebody smoking a joint?
right.
What's your thoughts on the TikTok ban?
Woo! I will tell you what, I just want to point out that that one's a little complicated for me because that's kind of where I started my whole platform of trying to figure out how to run for office and get visibility and stuff. But I think that one's going to come down to a international communication as well, because the truth is we have a lot of different companies, a lot of different internet type, stuff on social media that is not here based in the US. And I don't have a problem with things that aren't based in the US as long as, excuse me, there's open communication, you know, as long as we can see what's being done with information, making sure our people are safe, other people are safe. I mean, banning it, maybe not necessarily the just quick solve all problem. I think that is kind of believed that it would be necessarily. It's going to take a lot more in-depth looking into, where is the information going? IP addresses, different. I mean, don't even get me started on the tech nerd stuff because I was a computer information systems major in college. But where is all the actual data going? What's being done with it? Is it getting used? Do we have proof? Like, how many people here in the US have had fraud things happen because of these kinds of things versus how safe is it actually?
For sure. And Harvey, you got any questions about TikTok? I know you're big on TikTok, Harvey.
No, only TikTok I've ever had was a clock. Uh, uh,
uh,
no, I ain't on it, but yeah, there has to be. I'm like you. There has to be a lot of safety issues with that. It wouldn't be no different, Facebook. I mean, there should be like Facebook should be censored. I mean, yeah, it's got to be some kind of security and safety to keep it going.
Right. I mean, that is 100%. I completely agree with that. There has to be safety. There has to be open communication. There has to be other means of looking at things as opposed to it turning into just a good or a bad thing. Like the people who are sitting there, I want TikTok because I want to watch, my doom scrolling videos. Okay, well, you should probably learn about a little bit of what's going on. And then all the people who are like, oh no, TikTok bad, you should probably learn a little bit about what's going on. I mean, we have white hat hackers who help security systems for businesses and things of the sort. And we still have data leakage. It's happening all the time. And it's not just happening from other internet like entities that are foreign, it's also happening here in the US. So it really needs to get, I think, kind of overhauled and relooked at in a different sense as far as how do we talk to each other? How do we actually get the correct data as far as where fraud is happening, where data leakage is happening, where these things are actually happening, and how to work with each other to try to keep safety and prevent those issues.
if you're talking to an undecided voter right now, what would you tell them for give them a reason to vote for you?
I mean, if I had a year, really though, honestly, the best way that I could say it is gonna be that I want to listen to people. I want to understand things. I want to give people a better means of communicating with each other, a better means of understanding each other. I want there to be transparency in how our government talks to each other, and I'm gonna go out of my way and I will die on that hill trying to do it. You know what I mean? Is the reality of it. I've walked through a lot of different aspects in life, careers. I've been a mother, I've been a single mother. I have been so poor at one point, I was living in a car that was borrowed, you know? I've also had a nice house, but I've had a lot of different aspects in my life where I had to sit there and I had to evaluate myself and evaluate what was happening in the world and figure out how to get a voice again and how to be confident enough to stand up. And that is what I want for the US. I want the workers, I want the businesses, I want the nonprofits. I want to give people a chance to have a voice and have a leg to stand on. And I will use all the experience that I have in my life and continue to learn to do it. That's really honestly why I think people should vote for me. I'm a real person who's going to tackle the issues realistically and humanely, and I got so much potential to really help people in so many different senses. It seems foolish at this point that we have people in government who aren't either willing to say the same or do the same.
Do you have an 8-year plan?
I'm currently working on that. I will tell you the truth of it. It's a one step at a time, you know what I mean? As far as if I were to say I had an 8-year plan, my answer is going to be I will reevaluate that on a daily basis. I don't think that even the people who have the plans are prepared for the plans because they don't always end up being the right plan.
Yeah. But never mind. I was gonna make a joke, but it ain't a joke about you. It's a joke about somebody else. But I ain't even gonna go there. With your plans.
You know,
I mean,
yeah.
sometimes there's a time to say something, sometimes there's a time to not say something.
Yeah, yeah.
Sis,
What you gonna say, Harvey? My bad.
she may be like me. Today is August the 3rd, 2025. That's what she knows right now. I mean, we'll wait and see what August the 4th, 2025 brings if we're here.
That is the truth. I gotta tell you, Harvey, I agree with you so much on that because life is an ongoing process. We're reevaluating ourselves, our jobs, our homes, our finances every single day. And well, yeah, I would love to say, you know what, here's how it's all gonna work. I can't promise that this is how it's all gonna work. I can promise that I will fight like hell to make things fair for people, communicate with people, and help people's understanding. Every day, each day, you do it, you wake up, you go to bed, you do it, you wake up, you go to, you know what I mean?
We have an old saying here right here in this part of the country. We don't cross the bridge until we come to it.
I can't tell you how much I agree with that. That is the truth. You can sit there all day long and plan to cross the bridge, and then once you show up, you find out it's a set of stairs, and now what are you going to do?
Well, we're running out of time. I want to thank everybody for listening. I want to thank you for doing the show. I want to thank Harvey for doing the show as well. I want to thank everybody who's checked out the station, liked us on Facebook, gave us a subscription on YouTube and Rumble, gave us a follow on Spotify. Everybody have a good night and God bless.
Have a good night, guys.